Mia Magik. Welcome to the Woo Report.
So excited to be here.
So you are a best-selling author into witching, and you have a new book coming out, Witchual.
Yep.
And I'm so excited and obsessed with the punny names, and I really would love to talk about witches and what does a witch mean to you? What is the definition of a witch in 2025?
Well, I think that everyone experiences and works with the craft in different ways. So because witch means wise, it's about your wisdom. And wisdom is the knowledge that we've accumulated through our lived experiences that then we choose to shift or alter our behavior in accordance with. That's the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? Is wisdom is embodied. And so everyone has different traumas, everyone has different lineages, different teachings, and I think that's why I teach witchcraft very differently than most people, and craft means strength or skill. So we're all strengthening the skill of our wisdom, whether you're a personal development girly, where you're in the yoga and the Pilates, you're doing the mindset, you're on your manifestations, like maybe you're deep in the conspiracy theories, maybe you're an herbalist or an astrologer. There's so many different ways to be a witch because you're just living in accordance with how you've learned is best to function in the world. And for me, I have learned that there is deep magic accessible to me when I tap into the powers of the universe, when I understand that my body is made of the same elements as all of creation. The earth is my body. These bones within me are like the stones in the mountains. The air is the wind within me, the breath that I exchange between trees and plants. Then there's blood, which is the rivers and creeks and streams running through my veins. There's saliva, there's sweet waters between my legs. I'm made of water as well. And there's electricity and energy making my heart beat in every moment. That's the sunlight inside of me. That's my capacity to shine. That's that fire that drives and motivates me. And so I think that being a witch in the modern day, what I would like it to mean is people who actually live in accordance with understanding that we are not just part of nature or next to nature, but we are nature. And I think one of the things that witches have lost in this modern day is where we are really like, we've become a consumerist society, and witches of yore were using the plants and the cycles of the moon and the greater and larger energies, and that's all they had to work with. You didn't need any fancy stuff, and you didn't need to buy a bunch of things from Amazon and like the reptilian overlords. Like, you were sovereign and you were autonomous, and your priestesshood was between you and God, you and the earth. And so my prayer for us witches in 2025 is to really return the ancient ways to the modern day in how we function and how we eat and how we consume and in how we live our lives. And so I'm really doing that as a healer. That's what being a witch is for me. My magic is healing magic. So I like to support us all in unwinding and uncovering the things that stand in the way of being our best selves and living our most magical lives.
Oh my God, that was amazing. I love the idea of coming back to the earth. And I know that you run retreats, and I know you have one coming up. And by the time this airs, it will have just ended, but it's in the redwood forest. And I saw you there on Instagram recently, just visiting the space and like really tapping in. Can you talk about what that experience will be like? What will you do at a retreat like this, and how will you kind of reconnect with the earth?
Oh, great question. So for me, because nature is my church, it is my religion, it's who I'm in devotion to. What I love to do, and I think that what we've experienced with women and people all over the planet, is that, again, we've forgotten that we are nature. So we're okay with desecrating her. We're okay with, destroying her. And from my perspective, the most important thing we can do at a retreat or an experience like that is to help people return to their true nature. So these are the aspects of ourselves, our wildness, our sexuality, our safety in sisterhood, actually being able to be held and loved and supported with other women when often we can feel really afraid of that. The sisterhood wound is a result of the witch trials. In order to escape torture, you had to name someone else. That was kind of the only way you could get out. And so it became unsafe to even have friends. And that plays out today. We see how women are catty with one another. And so at my retreats, we reconnect to our true selves. What does it mean to want what you want, to be delighted by what delights you without the lens of shame or patriarchy or someone else's opinion or shoulds and supposed tos. And so we do really deep work on connecting with one another. We do spend a lot of quiet time just out in the forest and in the trees. Redwoods are the oldest and largest living beings on earth. So their intelligence and also their genetic makeup, their literal structure, when you map their genome, they are 10 times more complex than human beings. We have 3 billion base nucleic acid pairs of our DNA, and redwoods have 30 billion. They are 10 times more complex than humans are. And so they also run the retreat in their own way. And for me,
I
coming
believe
back
it.
to nature and using an experience like this, using a cathedral like they provide, I watch women leave as completely different people. I watch the way that they believe in themselves. I watch the aspects of their pleasure that they've touched. I've been working with sacred sexuality and Tantra for 13 years. And so there's a lot around reclaiming all of those natural ways. Like, how'd you get here? Did you not come here from sex? Because I did, right? I came through a womb and a pussy, and pretty sure like just about everybody did. All of the ways that witches and women and healers have been villainized by the church, we really want to reconnect to those things. And the majority is our creativity, whatever it is we want to create in the world, whether we want to be a imprisoned by societal programming.
Sign me up.
I'm like, girl, you should
I
come.
would love to talk. And so I'm like, wow, can I? What is the weekend of October 21st? I would love to be there. It sounds so amazing.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I've recently gotten into these spicy fantasy novels.
Ooh,
I
which
don't know if you've
ones?
heard of any of these. Like,
Girl,
I mean,
trust
all
me.
of them. Like, I've literally read all of
All
them.
the smut, all the
But
time.
I did all the smut. Well, so I did a whole episode on sacred smut because I was like, this is a sacred feminine awakening. Women are rallying around this because we have been shamed for so long about our pleasure, women's pleasure.
Yeah.
It's wild. So what, like, I'm just to go down that path for a moment. Like, what type of things will you do to empower women in that space?
So we have several different rituals that are really powerful that I love. One is a breast massage heart breathwork experience. So I lead them through a physical opening of the heart. They're actually massaging their breasts and bringing pleasure to their breasts, especially, we've had some insane exorcisms during that process. Women who have had mastectomies, women who've had breast implants, women who've had breast implant illness, women who've had children, and all of a sudden it's just about someone else nursing on literally surviving from your breast as opposed to their pleasure. So there's a physical breast massage aspect of that practice, and then I link it with a heart breath. So we're working the breath with attention with our heart, and the love field that blasts open from that is super powerful. And then we do another practice that is a priestess experience that many lineages do. I first learned this on Kauai with my sister Dakota, and it's called a sensorium. And so it's just giving all 5 senses. Well, technically, you take sight out so that you can experience your other 4 senses better. and we have many more than four, but your physical senses. And so it's a blindfolded
Mhm.
experience where every woman has 5 or 10 minutes in the center, and the other four women feed her, feather her, caress her, massage her, speak words of affirmation into her ears. And so her touch, her taste, her smell, and her sound are all activated at the same time. And it really just like drenches you in pleasure. And then we
Mm.
have, these are the like three explicitly designed around pleasure. We do a baptism ritual that's really powerful, where a lot of people who had church hurt and religious shame, that one can be like that's the pop off for them, where we're
Mm.
singing, everyone's singing the whole time, the whole group is singing the whole time, and then you get to proclaim what you're cleansing yourself from, and either like I'm dunking you in the water. In this case, we're in a lake, so you jump into the lake. And then the piece de resistance of the pleasure, experience is sex magic, and so that is a group pleasure ritual where you are not touching anyone else. You're all in a circle. You can be heads in or pussies in, whatever you like, in a canopy of the oldest growth redwoods on this beautiful property and estate, and we circle up in the trees. And so we're in and around this like giant fairy ring of old growth redwoods. In this particular circumstance, we do this at all of my retreats. So wherever the good forest canopy is, that's where we're doing it. And
Okay.
it's an orgasmic manifestation practice. So it is utilizing self-pleasure, aka masturbation, in a group setting where you're working the breath and the energy up through your chakra system, starting at the root and ending at the crown. And then at the crown, when you reach peak pleasure or orgasm, if that's available to you, you send your dreams and visions and manifestations up and out into the universe. And so those three practices in over the course of the days, even just those practices are really transformative. And of course, like doing things like the rage ritual, and there's another, I have a journey through shame, that is like uncovering what's in the way. So there's a lot that supports the pleasure rituals that aren't explicitly pleasure rituals. It's like, how do we get what's in the way out of the way?
Oh my gosh, obsessed with all of this. All right, you mentioned the rage ritual. So, for anyone that doesn't know, I've been, deep diving, and these videos are so wild. And then you can see afterwards this release. And so, will you just explain to, if anyone doesn't know, what is a rage ritual?
The rage ritual is really could be called a release ritual. It's just an opportunity to somatically move your body and use your voice in a way that perhaps you never have before. If you've been molested, if you've been abused, if you've had your boundaries crossed, if you've been hurt or harmed, it's just an opportunity to let whatever is stuck from those painful and traumatic experiences up and out of your body. Some people, it can be challenging and they just want to cry. And that's okay. Usually, as women, crying is a more accessible emotion to us than rage. And so I find that you kind of have to get through whatever is the layer on the top. You have to hit whatever. Maybe it's numbness, maybe it's sadness, and then you got to go through those layers and get to the rage. But it is a movement practice. So it's utilizing sticks. You can do it at home with your pillows if you want in bed. But utilizing sticks in the forest. The forest is the great alchemizer and composter. So we love to just envision her taking and receiving all of that pain from us and turning it into food and fuel for the future, like the earth is so good at doing. And so it's a meditation through any of the moments of your entire life where you wanted to get angry but couldn't, or it wasn't safe to, or there wasn't a space where that would have been held, and just giving yourself full permission to go fucking psycho. And I'm not afraid, and everybody else is doing it together. Sort of like the masturbation thing. That's the craziest part, is like what I love at my retreats is that, and in general with my work, is it seems so taboo. It seems like so crazy. It's like, oh, I can't yell in front of other people. I can't show my emotions. I can't have an orgasm in front of 38 other women. Like, what are you talking about? And every time, without fail, the most common response is, wow, it just felt so natural. Just felt right. and the feminine has been suppressed, especially our rage, because rage incites movements. Rage is a boundary emotion. It's a reactive emotion. It's a response to something. And women have been told not to get angry because look at all the horrific shit that's been happening to us. They're like, oh, no, no, no. Definitely don't let them have anything to say about that. But all of the, LGBTQIA plus, civil rights, women's rights, all of those movements started because of rage and outrage. And so it's a very important emotion that doesn't have enough safe spaces. And I just want to create a safe space for it. And so that is definitely, people lost their shit about it last year when it went super, super viral and misunderstood it a lot. And that's because of how we've been taught to feel about emotions. And that goes back to the first thing about being a witch. It's like, this is part of what has been shamed in our society that, I want to bring back that's what, I just want to live. I just want to be free, girl. I just want to be free. I want to just have full permission to live my life and be a goddess incarnate. And goddesses, there are stories of wrath, just like there are stories of pouring abundance, waterfalls of gold coins and beauty and pleasure. And so I want to be able to unwind the wrath that, for me at least, gets pointed internally. I point it at myself if I don't have anything to do with it. It turns into harsh criticism and negative self-talk and blame and shame. It feels horrible. Or I project it on someone I love. That's not what we want to do with our rage. So giving ourselves a rage ritual, and that's, we've got girls coming back for their 4th and 5th retreat with me at this experience. And they're like, one of them is like, I just needed another rage ritual, She's like, there's more layers. And I just had to get another one in, And so it's you don't brush your teeth once, right? You keep doing it. It's consistent. And so I find that when we create rituals for ourselves that allow us to release the pain that we more often hold back. And even when you talk to trauma experts like Gabor Mate, sometimes a spontaneous burst of anger that you actually let cycle all the way through the emotion can be the exact thing that will heal a wound or a autoimmune disease or some kind of bodily malfunction that is resulting from the suppression of that emotion, because you're telling your body, this is not okay, this is not safe, how you're feeling is wrong, this is bad, and we're abusing our inner children on a daily basis.
Wow. It's interesting because obviously this interview is coming up, and I have been watching the rage rituals, and I had been kind of swimming on your Instagram, and this past weekend I lost it on my kids in a way that was so full of rage that I really haven't even tapped into before. Not because I was watching any of it, but because I think I was like, I don't know if I could pull that up. And then all of a sudden there it was.
Yeah.
And I was so surprised by it. It felt totally primal. And also afterwards I felt terrible that it was directed at my kids. Yeah. But, I was like, of course I'm talking to Mia on Wednesday because she's going to tell me that, this is what happens if you're not letting it out in a different way. Yeah. You're just projecting it onto someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, we're all souls reacting to one another. There's dynamics and energy that are it's not just that, but especially from my perspective, I don't have children, but the mothers that have worked this practice, they'll enroll their kids. They're like, let's go do a rage ritual together so that everybody can get their anger out. And then we can, create something different on the other side. And that, you said it, the release, the movement of energy, the freedom, the beauty, the radiance that you see in women's eyes and faces after this practice is it's insane. It's unbelievable. It is so powerful. It's just, there's nothing like it. And I think it is partially because it's something that we've been taught is so bad, but it's okay for men. It's okay for them to get angry at us, but we have to just deal with it and suck it up. And when women give themselves the freedom just to feel it, and again, there's no one being blamed. There's no one being harmed. There's no one being projected on. Wow, the freedom and the space that's made for more beauty and more pleasure on the other side is profound.
I love it so much. You mentioned earlier the sister wound. And it's interesting. The other night, my friends were asking me about the witch wound. Like, what is a witch wound? And I don't think I did a good job explaining it, but I feel like you are the perfect person to explain it. What is a
Yeah.
witch wound?
So the witch wound is like an ancestral and epigenetic result of what happened in the witch trials and witch burnings. Even when you look at the King James Bible, that was a Bible that was being printed. That was a version of the Bible that was altered by King James, whose mother was murdered. Like, you got to really look back at all this like royal, intrigue. So he was raised by the church. He didn't have a mother, and his mother was, I think murdered by Mary Queen of Scots. There's a lot of like weird stuff that happened during that time. But he is the one who added many terms like "thou shalt not suffer a witch" to the Bible. Those things were not in there before. And so the witch wound is a result of there are different estimates, but some say millions of women and people who were murdered during the time where witches were the doctors. That was, if you needed help, if you needed healing, that's who you went to. And when the church took over, you were being charged money and you were being offered only prayer or these absolutions of the devil that was causing this issue. The Crusades, what that was a genocide, was an annihilation of the healers, the midwives, the herbalists, the enchanters in whatever context or way that they were. And so not only do we all have that in our lineage, whether, any European person, most African descendant people are going to have the witch and the witch hunter in their blood. You're going to have both. You're going to have the colonized and the colonizer, like most of the Americas. And so we feel this pain within ourselves. It's why women are afraid of nature. We've also been programmed, this is another part of it, is don't get dirty, don't get tan, oh, that's for peasants. This is the civilians work the fields. So you don't get your nails dirty. Don't get even your little toes dirty. Don't get in wild waters. These were all Victorian programming to prevent women from being in their wild nature. And the witch wound can show up, talking about the sisterhood wound, if the only thing that would save you from horrific torture, which if you look up some of these torture devices, I went to a torture chamber in Transylvania, actually in Dracula's castle this summer, and it was one of the most horrific things I've ever seen, not just because of the torture devices, but because there were people who were intentionally devising and designing things like that in order to harm another person in that way, like metal pyramids that you would chain someone down onto so that gradually their pussy would just break open and they would literally be split in two, just horrific things. And if the only way to escape that was to name the baker's daughter down the road or your best friend or anyone, just say a girl's name and call her a witch and this will get you out of there. That makes it not safe to have friends. So that's part of the witch wound, is the way that women compete or combat or conflict with one another rather than connect and collaborate and co-create. Our fear of nature, because nature was where we would do our rituals. Nature was where we would gather all of our herbs for our medicine. Nature is where we got all of our food. Nature was what sustained us. And we became afraid of nature. We were told not to be out there. If you got caught singing in the forest, which I don't know about you, but whenever I go to the forest, I can't help but sing, And so anything that we would do out in nature. And then, of course, our sexuality. The man who wrote The Hammer of Witches, Malleus Maleficarum, which was this book that was created in Germany at the time, right when the printing press was being made available, and it became the second most printed book after the Bible. And it was all about destroying witches and how to kill them and how to spot them. And it had all these weird things and oh, if she has a mark, it's well, lots of people have those. And that book was written by a man who had accused a woman of foul play and all these bad things. And he there was a trial, and he told the jury that the evidence that he had was her promiscuity or her sexuality. And the jury found her not guilty because they're like, well, who cares? Like, she's having sex, whatever. And he was so ashamed by that he wrote this entire book on how to capture and torture women. And that book, again, became so widely spread in the 1500s. This is why we call it the Dark Ages, because it became this like manual for people. And it's just born from some guy who got slighted, who got upset about this woman who wouldn't have sex with him. And we look at our society today and the way men function with, being able to just take from women whatever they want a lot of times and get away with it. And that is built on what happened in those times and in that era. And so we have this fear. Women were strangled, women were tortured. So we often have a fear of using our voices. We feel terrified of speaking out. I mean, the things that I've done and said in my life and business, I would have been burned for time and time again. I wouldn't have made it past, 2,000 followers on Instagram or whatever. Maybe not even that, maybe 200. And so anything, speaking your voice, utilizing your pleasure, being in your power, making your own money. One of the other things that happened with the witch wound is that women, if your husband died, or where the term spinster comes from, is women who were just well off. They had made money because they were spinning. They had their sheep, sheared the sheep, made the yarn, knit the sweaters, and they were spinsters. They were spinning yarn and weaving clothes, and they had their own businesses. They had their own money. Not someone who wasn't married. It was like a woman who's doing great on her own, and now it has become this negative connotation. So if a woman had resources or money or land or livestock or a well full of water, anyone in her village that didn't have those things could go and accuse her of witchcraft, get her prosecuted, or get her condemned in some way. And often they would we're going to tie her to this metal chair and throw her in the water. And if she sinks, she's not guilty. But if she floats, she's a witch. It's well, she's what? Okay, so you just killed someone. Everyone's sinking. And this fear and terror of being out in our magic, in our rituals, in our power, in our beauty, having money, having resources, all of that comes from this era.
Wow, I did not know any of that. That is so wild. I feel like we all just learned a lot. I was the Dark Ages, yes. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Mm-hmm. When I first really kind of tapped into all of this, someone had said to pool your energy with others. That stuck with me. The idea of sitting with women or sitting with your partner and, whether it's manifesting or talking about what your dream life will look like, or wanting health or wanting wealth or wanting whatever it is that you want. And then being together with that same intention. And as I'm saying this out loud, I'm is that also the power of prayer? Is that what they talk about, the power of prayer? But I'm curious, in your retreats and in your work, do you feel that? Do you feel that a pooling of energy?
Yeah, I think it depends on the context, right? Because if there are people in the space that are trying to pull energy from you instead of pool energy with you,
right,
that can play a role. And so absolutely though, I just went over to my dear sister's house. A couple of my girlfriends live together, and we just went and did cervical breath work together. And it's so beautiful to do practice in community when we do share an intention and when we do have the same desires for ourselves, for our lives. I was in ritual with my lover yesterday all day. I hadn't seen him in 2 weeks, and good Lord, we just were in sex ritual all day. And there's so much that you can do with yourself, with your sexual energy, but it's designed to be shared and utilized and connected with another person. And so Absolutely. I mean, I can meditate by myself and I can be in the forest, but even that, like pooling my energy with the forest instead of just sitting in my house is a very different thing.
Mm.
And so, yes, I do believe wholeheartedly that, especially as, we know that this is just an illusion, this separation. So we know that it's all one anyways. And so I see it as like, well, if we're all just little drops in the ocean, but we're also the entire ocean in a single drop, then when we all gather together, we're filling a vessel. We're filling a cup with more beauty, with more magic, with more intention, with more power. And the true power is love. So like if you're in that field with people who are in love with you, with life, with themselves, with the practice or whatever the experience is that you're going to be having all together, then yeah, amplification in group setting absolutely is, I think, very, very powerful. And that prayer, like you said, it's all prayers, right? For us, like sometimes we use orgasm as a prayer, sometimes we use song as a prayer, sometimes we use just words help to send healing for someone as a prayer. And like yesterday we were just like doing so much energy, like moving energy, supporting like what needs to be said, what needs to be heard. So there's so many ways to be in ritual and to be in prayer with ourselves and each other. And absolutely, I do think it is amplified by doing it together.
I saw on Instagram the other day you were doing a ritual at your house, but you were setting up an altar
Oh
and you
yeah.
were like, I'm going to use what I have. And there were like snacks in there. There were like some nuts. And then, not everyone's going to have like a large, was it an obsidian crystal? I don't know what it was, but
It's some
it's
malachite,
crystals and
emeralds,
feathers.
rose points. Yeah.
Yes. So, can you talk a little bit about like what if I'm just sitting at my house and I'm like
Yeah.
I want to tap in. I want to do a ritual that feels like I'm connecting. I don't even know what my intention would be, but what intention are we manifesting something? Are we hoping for health? Are we like what was that ritual that you did, and how can someone at home, implement it in their life?
So those are kind of two different questions because I did
Okay.
have a specific intention. If you want to do a ritual, the intention is actually the most important part. What do I need right now? And if you're wanting to manifest both health, wealth, money, anything, I do find that the most important thing is to see what's in the way. If you're going to try and cast a spell to make $20,000, the belief about your deservingness of those $20,000 or your capacity to get it or how it may or may not come to you, those are actually way more important things to deal with than the spell to make $20,000. That's why my craft is different. That's why I do believe, I've had so many messages from the divine and showing me why, as someone who's doing something so taboo and so not mainstream, that I've had all this mainstream press and success is because I'm not just gonna give you a spell that you think you just write this down 3 times and set it on fire and then poof, like you're gonna get what you want. No. I wanna see what inner child wound or what trauma pattern is informing the way that you believe about that thing you're trying to get. And so, whatever your ritual is, your intention is the number one beginning part. What is my intention? Okay, if my intention is for money, what I would do is like a ritual around scarcity. What am I doing in my life? How am I operating? If I'm looking around my house to like build an altar, is everything cheap plastic shit from Amazon? Because even though we're like, oh, this is convenient for me, it's going to be delivered right to my house and it's, costs less money and I don't have to go to the store to get the thing. Yeah, but there's like child slaves that made that for you in some far off place. So if that's the vibration that you're bringing into your home, it's actually a vibration of scarcity. So one of the first things that I do with people that want to manifest something, and health and wealth are very tied, right? Because health is the wealth inside of our bodies and wealth is the like health of our finances. Mm-hmm. And so it's always like looking at what is the opposite of that thing and how am I relating with that? Oh, I want to be healthy. Okay, well, how am I being toxic? Where am I being out of alignment? And that goes back to the thing about like abusing our inner child. People are like, oh, child abuse is so horrible. Like, we have to stop this. And it's like, well, we're abusing our inner children every day. That's what is perpetuating child abuse on the planet, is because when you tell yourself this instinct, this inclination, this desire, this emotion, whatever it is bad or wrong or shameful and you shouldn't do it, that's child abuse, because everyone has an inner child. So the ritual that I was doing was just setting up an altar. I did go and use the Viking has a wonderful crystal collection, and so I did go pillage his hoard of crystals and like add extra crystals to my altar from his place, which was great. But I'm like just looking at things right here that I just have on my desk. I've got like a card that says beloved. I just dropped my fluorite, but I've got this card. Cool. Okay. I've got this beautiful whale tail made out of tropical wood that I got when I was in Tonga. And I've got this beautiful seashell. Okay. Well, this seashell is both earth and water because it's like a bone. It's like a bone from the ocean. Cool. So this represents whatever it is. I can fill this with water. I can fill this with honey. I can fill this with moon blood. Cool. I can just like add, a little something that signifies earth and water. My emotions, my sexuality, my creativity, my body, my health, my wealth. Oh, I've got a green stone. Okay, cool. Fluorite, green. Green is the color of life, so it is the color of abundance, right? We make our money green here, at least in the States. Other countries have really colorful money. But I was building an altar because I needed an intentional space that is a center point in my home. I'm in a new home. Just got like one of my first pieces of my own art here. It's like decorated very differently than I would decorate a place. And I moved in here and it's a furnished house. And so I needed a place that felt like me. I needed an altar in this place. And that was the ritual. It was like, we just want to build a ritual for this new moon, it was the autumn equinox. That's what the little fruits and abundance, because autumn is the last moment of fecundity and fertility with the earth. The last melons, the last squashes, the last apples are growing and being harvested. And so we had that beautiful little harvest basket in the center because that is representative of the true abundance that there's. Yes, I did put $100 bill in it, but like walnuts and figs and potatoes and gourds, that is abundance. Before it was all the pomp and circumstance, to be able to survive the winter meant you were abundant if you could feed yourself. And so really thinking about, what do I want to call in? What do I want to create? What am I doing on a daily basis that is opposing that, or repelling it, or pushing it away from me? And those are, I think, the best rituals to start. And a lot of it, a ritual that I've been doing lately, because God bless this man who has just like completely transformed my life. He has these like somatic practices of just tracking energy in your body. And so I'm just laying down for like 15 to 90 minutes and literally just starting with, can I feel energy in my face? And then can I feel it down into my neck and my shoulders, over my arms? Then can I track it down the midline of my body if I want to bring sexual energy into it? Okay, can I feel it in my pussy? Can I feel it in my womb? Can I really sort of map out and navigate the forms, the shapes of my bones, my pelvis, my pubic bone, my tailbone, my sacrum, how that extends down into my legs? And that ritual, I've done a lot of shit in my life. I have done really weird things. I have tried all the spiritual medicines. I have run the gamut of exploration, and just taking quiet time to actually get to know my body in a way that is not, there's no end goal. There's no outcome. There's no result. It's literally just, can I sense the length of distance between my tailbone and my pubic bone? What about the distance between my two hips? How does that relate to the way that my spine holds my body up straight? And just mapping that out has been so transformative. So you really don't need stuff. Your body, your breath, nature, like those are the most fundamental elements of ritual. And that's what Witchual, that's what my book is all about. That's what this second book is all about, is how do you just live an intentional ritualistic life. And really the bottom line is it's what you give your attention and your intention to. And so the entire book is an exploration of exactly this. I want to feel this way. What is the ritual that I do for that? I want to experience this. How do I work that? I'm coming up against this inner child pattern or this darkness or this witch wound. What do I do? And so it's a beautiful collection of, working with shadow work, working with the archetypes of the masculine and the feminine, working with nature, working with your inner child, conscious consumption, mentally and physically. What are we letting into our lives? Everyone who's listening to this, right? This kind of content is supportive. This is educational. But a lot of us, spend a lot of time absorbing things that are actually not good for us. And so, it's an exploration. I love the subtitle is Transformative Rituals to Live a Fearlessly Authentic Life. So that's it. It's like, how do you clear out the pieces that make you afraid of just being who you are? Because when you do that, who you are is a magnetic, powerful creator. You can attract in anything that you want. You just have to get the pieces that don't believe it's possible, or that tell you it's stupid, or that like you're an idiot and everyone else can have it, but you can't. That's what has to transform.
Woo! I feel empowered. I feel empowered. I have a quick question about this.
Yeah.
So an intention, okay, so we're setting an intention, let's say for health. And you had mentioned, okay, well, let's look at what we're doing that's toxic.
Right.
So we figure that out. And then how does that like add to our ritual? Are we just getting rid of that stuff in our life? Are we meditating on it? How do we purge that? Like, I guess it's more so shadow work, but we're not including the toxic part in our ritual, or are we?
You can. So like one of the pieces that dives deeper, kind of blending the shadow work with this somatic practice that I'm talking about is, okay, I noticed that one of these toxic behaviors that I have, like I'll share an example from myself. So my lover was coming back and I had like texted him something kind of vulnerable, and he wrote me back, but then I wrote him back and he didn't write me back for like the whole night. And I was losing my shit. I wanted to punish him. Like I wanted to lash out. I felt like that response was me being in trouble. And so I wanted to like make him feel in trouble. I wanted to punish him. That is a me problem. That reaction, that response, that's a me problem. So I worked it with my hypnotherapist. She's like, okay, this desire to punish is because you feel punished, is because like you feel like you are bad and like you're being made wrong. So for me, I like worked it in the hypnosis thing. And then what ended up happening was that it was about, I'm actually going to make it into a reel because it was just so fucking good. She was like, but Mia, he had said something. He was like, I'm feeling terrified of like reconnecting because this is so big. And I was like, okay, no problem. My question was like, what's making you feel terrified? And you just didn't respond. She's like, this is a child. This is an inner child who's telling you that they're afraid. And you want to respond by getting them in trouble and by lashing out at them. But if a little child was standing in front of you and told you that they were afraid, what would you do? You would be sweet and you would try and help them work through their fear. So he was like, my terror can come off as cold. So I just made a video of me putting on every fur coat I had. And I was like, don't worry, bro. Like, I'm prepared for the cold. I got it. And it became this hilarious, sweet, funny, like playful, childlike thing where like, I'm not afraid of your trauma. It's fine. And it was so healing for both of us. It was insane. Like that he didn't get in trouble and I didn't lash out. So healing. So that type of thing, that kind of experience, right? I see the trauma, I see the pattern in me. This is like a response to my dad for not, paying attention to me or whatever. It has nothing to do with him, it's fine. And so there's a couple of ways you can do it. One, you can journal. Like, okay, I want to write a letter to this version of myself. This is in the inner child chapter. Then switching hands and using your non-dominant hand and letting that part of yourself write a letter back to you. Very difficult, let me tell you, but so worth it. And it uses an entirely different part of your brain to use your opposite hand. So it can like tap into a part of your subconscious where you are actually receiving a letter back from that part. So that's one thing. The other thing is like in the somatic practice, okay, let me tap into that part of myself. Let me scan through my whole body. Let me see, where is this hurting part? Where is this part that wants to, make someone else bad or wrong instead of like deal with this thing? So then there's both of those parts. Okay, there's the one that like needs to be dealt with, and then there's the part that like wants actually to lash out. And it's like the wounded part that's then like this protector is the lash out, but the little wounded part is like, am I good enough? Like, can I just feel into those pieces? Can I let them all be here? Can I allow them with love, treat them like those same little children? That's what they are. They're just wounded child responses. What do they need? How can I offer that to them? And for me in that moment, the ritual was just making the funny video. It was like, I'm going to be playful with this part because it was so afraid of being in trouble, which was the pattern that we were pinging back and forth, that just playing with it was the ritual. That was it. We're going to make a funny video. This is hilarious. Now it gets to become a real, like, go ahead, bro, ice me. Like, I'm prepared, all good. And it led to even more beautiful intimacy and connection and love. And so you can bring it into your ritual where you can sit it in front of you on a pillow and have a conversation with it. You can do the writing letters. You can just do a write and burn. This is the stuff that, is coming up, and I'm just going to write it all out and then I'm going to burn it. But actually, like, that's what I think the problem is with all these like manifestations, and so many of the witches online is like, oh, never bring in. It's like, that part that you're telling me not to bring into my ritual, that part is there. If my subconscious runs my life more than my conscious mind does, and that part of me believes that I'll never get this perfect health or that perfect man or this, $20,000 or $1 million or whatever it is, that part is running your spell. That part is actually controlling your ritual, and there's nothing you can do about it. So giving it permission to be part of the ritual actually is the thing that makes the difference. Now, I don't recommend doing your manifestation rituals in the same moment as your shadow work rituals, but if you go and sit with this part, whether physically, energetically, emotionally, maybe it just needs to emote, maybe it needs a rage ritual. What does that part, does it want to smash its hands and pillows? Does it want to scream? Does it want to take a bath? Like, what do you need to do with it? And when you can give it what it needs, then from that space, it's like the rage ritual. From that space, now what do I want to fill that new room with? I've got a little more floor space to work with here. What do I want to do with it now? And that's really, I think, the biggest part of using your attention and your intention, and never, ever trying to ignore or deny those parts that are actually running the show. They are in charge. If you pretend they don't exist, if you try to ignore them, good luck. They will just keep getting stronger and louder and cause more havoc in your life. And so tending to them and listening to them is some of the most powerful ritual work that you can do, which is why that's what I started with in my book, because it's the foundation. It's what allows you to then be able to manifest.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you one final question that I'm asking everyone on this podcast. I started this podcast because I had this near-death experience, and my consciousness fell out of my body, and I kind of slipped through the veil. And I've been interested now in death and dying, what happens when we die. So what do you think happens when we die?
I have experienced only death in the context of like doing 5-MeO DMT, where your brain and body can feel like they've died so that your spirit can return to the light and access infinite universal consciousness. And so that to me feels like where I'm going, what I'm doing is just returning to oneness. And then my very favorite book, which since you've got kids, you should check out, my very favorite book is called The Mountains of Tibet. and it's about reincarnation. And my dad gave it to me for my 4th birthday. And it's about this man who loves to fly kites, and he's born in Tibet, and then he dies and he goes back to the oneness, and he gets to choose what he wants to do next. And he gets to choose from all these planets and all these mountains or hills or valleys, and then all these different people who want children. And he ends up in the same place, on the same hill, loving to fly kites, but this time as a girl. And I get chills thinking. Every time I read the book, I just weep.
got chills too.
Yeah, it's so good. And so I think it's like that.
I will definitely be getting that.
Yeah, what else do we need to learn? What else do we want to feel? How else do we want to grow? And maybe we live almost exactly the same life, but it's in a different body. And yeah, I think that really feels true to me, is we do get to choose if we want to keep going. And I've definitely been a redwood tree, and I've had moments where I feel like this is my last lifetime on earth. Like I came to really fuck some shit up in a big way and change the trajectory of this planet. And I know that I've already done that just for what I've done on behalf of witches and women. And I don't have any plans to stop anytime soon. So I just think it's an infinite, endless, limitless cycle of learning to come home to love.
Oh, Mia Magik, you are a goddamn inspiration. Thank you so much for being here. That was so beautiful and empowering. And I'm excited to live in this edit and then have this conversation forever. So thank you so much for sharing it with me and with the Woo Report.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, babe. So beautiful.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. I ended up thrifting that children's book Mia mentioned, The Mountains of Tibet, for my kids, and it's so beautiful. They absolutely love it. I've read it to them multiple times. It is linked below for you. And thank you for listening. I hope you feel empowered and feel that inner witch awakening within you. Please follow and subscribe. A rating goes a long way. Would love if you could leave one on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And be sure to sign up for the mailing list at thewooreportpodcast.com. I've got some exciting things in the works, and I cannot wait to share them with you all. As always, thank you for listening and for loving on this little slice of magic. So grateful you are here. Bye.